The show where there are no penalties, nothing is offside, and everything is fair game. This is The Gloves Are Off.
Welcome to The Gloves Are Off. I'm Moses Woldu. We've got a great show for you, especially if you are a Vancouver Canucks fan. You definitely heard the news today. And of course, I have to introduce my guest and my co-host before we actually get to that. Greg Buchanan, how are you?
Not bad, Moses.
And pleased to be joined by Matt Choumont. What's going on, my man?
Good, I'm doing good. How you doing?
Not too bad. Probably in a lot better mood than what Mike Gillis is earlier this afternoon. The axe finally came down. You knew it was going to happen eventually with the team officially being eliminated and the fans start chanting, "Fire Gillis." It seemed like they got their wish. He got today fired from his president and GM duties. Guys, the writing was on the wall. We kind of saw that coming. But do you see the axe falling on John Tortorella next?
Well, I guess it depends who they hire as his replacement, because as a general manager, you want the coach that you hired. So many times when a GM comes in place, doesn't mean that the head coach that's in place at that time is going to stay.
Yeah, I heard a story a couple of weeks ago that I don't think Mike Gillies wanted Tortorella to be the head coach. It's more the owners who wanted to bring him in. So, especially when you trade your top two goalies, yeah, of course the axe is going to fall.
I do want to get to Mike Gillis himself. Do you feel that maybe the ownership for Vancouver jumped the gun a little bit? You're out of the playoffs, yes, I understand. You have 3 games left. Do you just want to kind of write out the season, then make the decision? Or was it just, you know what, let's make the decision now was the best opportunity?
Well, they got pressure. You know, the fans are sitting there chanting. They're feeling a whole lot of pressure in Vancouver right now. So I think they kind of succumbed to the pressure, and they probably should have waited, but they didn't.
Like, was it fair for him to get fired now as opposed to the end of the season?
Well,
or didn't make any
you
sense?
better get it done now, right? You know, you go into the off season, you hopefully get a good GM quick enough, and you can kind of fix up the pieces or clean up the pieces that kind of Gilly, you know, when he smashed the glass there.
And that's, well, I think that's kind of evident of how the season kind of went for them, how things kind of transpired for Vancouver. Do you see them getting back to any respectability next season?
No, not with Eddie Lack, and it's gonna. I think they're gonna.
Even with Trevor Linden saying he's coming in, there's a lot of talk about him coming in.
Yeah,
as the president.
well, you bring one guy, he's not putting the puck in the net though, and they're just getting older with the Sedin twins. Like Kessler says, he wants to be there, but I don't think he wants to be there. So I kind of see Vancouver in trouble right now.
You know, the scary thing about it is, if you're a Vancouver Canuck fan, you actually see more promise in Alberta than you do in the West Coast. That's a scary thought. But I really, if I was picking one of those 3 teams to be a GM for, a team that actually has a future, I'd probably pick Calgary or Edmonton before I go to Vancouver, because Vancouver's getting old. You're tied up with the IKEA twins there. That you can't go and trade one, because you're going to have to trade both of them.
And they're already locked up for 4 years, so that's tough.
That's stupid.
But what about new ownership that comes in? Look what happened with Colorado, for example, a team that ended up getting the first overall pick, was horrible last season, ended up bringing in Joe Sakic, Patrick Waugh, former Avalanche players. All of a sudden, the turnaround, the team's making the postseason. Guys, do you see that maybe for Vancouver, or what's the difference between Colorado and Vancouver at this point?
Young talent. Colorado's so skilled up front. They're young, they're fresh, they're ready to go. As for Vancouver, like I said, they're getting old, they're getting brittle. Sedin's, they're done, and they got no goaltending.
The great thing in Colorado, they're young, but more than anything, they bought in. And everybody has bought in the Avalanche organization. And Patrick Waugh, if he doesn't win Coach of the Year, there's something seriously wrong. But Vancouver's an old team. They're stuck in their ways. Tortorella tried to change them. I would be surprised if he's there come next season.
All right, what about the NSRBL guys? We'll move on to baseball. I know spring is here. Major League Baseball is getting underway. Locally, they had their annual general meeting on Sunday, and some not so good news for some Lloydminster teams. Of course, the midgets and the juniors will no longer be in the league, taking a year absence. 2 new teams will be coming in, or Macklin, a brand new team, and of course, Edam making its return after being gone for 3 seasons. But also the talk of the Lloydminster Twins not coming back, the defending 5-time champions. Guys, is it a real big concern when you don't have the returning champions, a team that's been so dominant over the years, not back in your league?
There's positives and negatives for both. Positive, you know, there's going to be a new champ. There's going to be some fresh blood at the top of the table. And unfortunately, you're going to lose the 5-time defending NSRBL champions, and I think they've won 14 or 15 or it is in their franchise. But tough to see him go, but interesting to see what's going to happen.
You know, you go through these cycles, and I think even the Border Kings are going through that right now. From 2000 until 2007, they were one of the best organizations in all of Canada, and you kind of see where they've gone to lately. And it really stems from leadership on that team. And when you're running an organization like the Twins and like the Border Kings, they're just not players. These players have to run the organization on top of playing on the diamond. And when you have guys who've been doing it for a long time get burnt out, they move on. The young kids have to step up and run that organization. So right now it's kind of a call out to those young guys to step up, take the bull by the horns, and help the Twins fuel the team this year. And if they don't, then they're going to have to take a leave of absence.
Almost that limbo period is where they're at. And you know, the NSRBL commissioner, Kevin Collier, said yesterday when we were talking to him that midget baseball is kind of dropping, so that's where they need to kind of pick it up. Let's talk about a team that's picked it up, the Lloydminster Bobcats. Huge year considering what happened the previous season. One game away from making it to the North Division Final. But I will say this, Gary Van Herway, big reason why this turnaround was. I think it's fair to say. I know, Matt, that you've kind of had an extensive talk with him. Was it smart for them to have him returning, and where would they be without him, say, going on to next season?
No, it's huge to bring Gary because what's he going to bring in, right? He wanted to come back after having talks with his family. He's a great coach. Look at the turnaround that they had, and you know, with the potential of Lloydminster hosting the RBC Cup in a couple of years, it's going to draw in those talented players to come play in Lloydminster, and I see nothing but good things with Gary Van Herway here.
You know what? I think Gary's kind of guy that takes a look and doesn't think about the things he doesn't have, but he works with what he does have. And that's a big thing in the AJHL, because you don't have the skill, you don't have the talent pool like your Fort Mac or your Spruce Groves and even Drumheller and Brooks. You don't have that talent of those teams, so you have to really make good of what you have. And I think Gary had everybody in that team bought in, and that goes a long way. And Gary did a tremendous job, and it's going to be exciting to see him back for another year.
What grade would you give the Bobcats' decision and Gary's decision to come back for next year?
A+.
Yeah, definitely A+.
All right, well, grades in, but we have to take a commercial break. When we return, we're going to talk about more AJHL action, of course, Game 7 between the Saints and Oil Barons, as well as more hockey topics and the Blue Jays. What's going on after their first week? Can they keep improving?